It was supposed to be just another quiet afternoon in a sleepy little town until sirens shattered the peace. In a scene straight out of a nightmare, an elderly woman watched in shock as her car went up in flames, and the people responsible, not criminals, not vandals, but the very cops sworn to protect her. What sparked this chaos? Was it a mistake, or something more deliberate? The woman, known around town as Miss Clara, had lived in that neighborhood for over 40 years, kind, soft-spoken, and never one to stir trouble. So why her? Why now? As neighbors gathered, filming with their phones and asking questions, the officers stood by, strangely calm. But just as smoke filled the air and confusion turned into outrage, something happened, something that flipped the entire situation on its head. Within just 10 seconds of the fire starting, an unexpected twist changed everything. And no one, not the cops, not the crowd, not even Miss Clara, could have seen it coming. This wasn't just about a car. It was about something much deeper, something buried in the past, suddenly pulled into the light. And what came next? Let's just say, the police weren't ready for what was about to unfold. Stay with us, because this story is just getting started, and you won't believe what happens next. 10 seconds after the fire started, a low rumble echoed from down the street. People turned their heads. At first, it sounded like a distant engine, but it grew louder, closer. Then, through the smoke, a black pickup truck pulled up fast and stopped with a sharp brake. Out jumped a man in his late 30s, jeans dusty, eyes locked on the burning car. He didn't say a word. He just stared at the fire, then at the officers, his jaw clenched tight. Miss Clara's face changed the moment she saw him, part shock, part fear, part something else. The man's name was Jordan. Most folks hadn't seen him in years. Some didn't even know Miss Clara had a son. But there he was, standing between the smoke and the crowd, like he knew this wasn't just an accident, like he'd been waiting for something like this to happen. People whispered, trying to piece things together. Why had Jordan disappeared all those years ago? Why was he back now, right at the exact moment his mother's car caught fire? And why were the officers suddenly avoiding eye contact, shifting their weight, no longer looking so sure? Whatever history tied Jordan, Miss Clara, and these officers together, it was heavy. And now it was finally coming to the surface. Jordan didn't waste time. He walked straight toward the flames, ignoring the officers who called out for him to stay back. One of them, Officer Rains, stepped in front of him, hand resting on his belt, trying to sound firm. But his voice wavered just slightly. That was all Jordan needed to hear. He paused, looked Rains dead in the eye, and said, "You really thought this would stay buried forever?" The crowd went quiet. Miss Clara stood frozen on the porch, eyes wide, lips pressed tight, like she was holding back years of truth. A neighbor asked if she was okay, but she didn't answer. Instead, her gaze stayed locked on Jordan, like she knew this was about to go much deeper than a burned car. And she was right. Behind the smoke and sirens was a history that stretched back over a decade. Jordan had once been caught in something the town never fully understood: a robbery gone wrong, a missing file, and rumors of evidence that had vanished. The case was dropped, and Jordan disappeared. But some said the truth never came out, and now, with that car burning, it was clear someone wanted it to stay hidden. But why that car? What was inside it? And why were those same officers, who once worked the original case, now standing there silent, watching it all go up in flames? The fire had finally died down, but the air was still thick with smoke and secrets. All that remained of the car was a smoldering frame, barely recognizable. Jordan walked closer, careful with each step, his boots crunching over burnt gravel. The officers didn't try to stop him this time. They just watched, tense, like they knew whatever came next was out of their hands. Then Jordan turned to the crowd. "There was a box," he said, loud enough for everyone to hear. "In the trunk. It belonged to my dad. It was locked, metal, marked with his initials. And now it's gone." A ripple of shock moved through the crowd. Miss Clara let out a shaky breath. That box, people remembered it. She used to mention it quietly at the market, said it held old things, personal things. But Jordan knew better. That box had papers, tapes, proof of what really happened the night his father vanished. Proof that could ruin lives. Officer Rains stepped forward, trying to steady the moment. "That's a bold claim," he said, forcing a calm tone. But his hands were shaking. Jordan didn't blink. Then why burn the car? The silence that followed said everything. A storm was building, one made of lies, buried truth, and fear. And now nothing could stop what was coming next. Just when the tension couldn't feel any heavier, a phone rang, sharp, sudden, cutting through the silence like a knife. It was Miss Clara's. She fumbled to answer, hands still trembling. "Hello," she said, voice barely above a whisper. Her eyes widened, then darted straight to Jordan. "You need to hear this," she muttered, holding the phone out to him. Jordan took it, pressing it to his ear. For a few seconds, he didn't speak. Then his expression shifted, from focused to confused to something close to panic. "You're sure?" he said quietly. He hung up and looked around, eyes scanning the faces in the crowd. "The box wasn't in the trunk," he said. "Someone moved it, hours before the fire." That changed everything. The fire wasn't to destroy the box. It was a distraction. Someone wanted the whole town looking one way, while they slipped away with what really mattered. And if they had that box now, they had power. Real power. Miss Clara looked like she'd aged 10 years in a minute. "It was never about the car," she said, almost to herself. "It's starting again." Jordan stared at her. "What do you mean?" She hesitated, eyes glassy. "Your father warned me. If that box ever disappeared, people would start dying." And just like that, the stakes were no longer about the past. They were about survival. The street had gone quiet. No sirens now, no shouting, just the low hum of voices and the weight of what Miss Clara had just said. Jordan didn't wait. He turned, headed for the house, and pulled open the old cellar door behind it. Dust flew up, and the wooden steps creaked under his boots. He remembered this place, where his dad used to work late, always saying he was fixing things. But Jordan knew now. He wasn't fixing anything. He was hiding something. He reached the bottom and flicked on the light. At first, nothing. Then he saw it, an empty space on the old workbench. Dust outlined the shape of the box. Whoever took it had been there recently, and they'd been careful, but not careful enough. A flash drive was left behind, tucked beneath a loose board. Jordan grabbed it and ran back up. Back outside, he plugged the drive into an officer's laptop. What came up stopped everyone cold. Video files, voice recordings, documents, original copies from the night of that long-forgotten robbery. Evidence not only clearing Jordan's name, but exposing a cover-up that stretched into city politics. Corrupt officers, faked reports, and at the center, Officer Rains. The crowd turned to him, but he wasn't there. He was gone. And just when they thought it was over, Jordan's phone buzzed again. One message. Asterisk asterisk Q. We're never the only one looking for the truth. Asterisk asterisk. The screen went black. Jordan stood there, phone in hand, heart racing. The message chilled him, not because it was a threat, but because it was a reminder. He wasn't alone in digging up the past. There were others watching, waiting, maybe even helping from the shadows. Officer Rains had disappeared, but his silence spoke louder than any excuse ever could. The files were now in safe hands, already backed up and shared with a lawyer. What had once been buried in ashes was finally out in the open. Miss Clara sat quietly on the porch as the sun began to set, the orange glow warming her weathered face. "Your father always said the truth would come at a cost," she whispered. Jordan nodded, now understanding what that truly meant. The past hadn't just haunted them, it had shaped them, tied them to secrets too dangerous to keep. The town would talk, as it always did. Headlines would follow. But for the first time in years, the story would be told right. a story of truth, of justice, and of one man who returned not just to clear his name, but to protect the memory of a father who tried to do the same. And this time, they couldn't burn it away.